Hi, I'm Vanessa Conlin, Master of Wine and Head of Wine for Wine Access, and I'm here to taste today 2018 Louis Moreau Petit Chablis as part of the Discover France Wine Folly set that I collaborated with co-founder of Wine Folly, Madeleine Paquette, on, and we're traveling through all of the major regions of France on a tasting experience. So, please be sure you have your wine poured in your glass, and let's talk about why Chablis matters. We'll taste the wine and then circle back to the producer and a bit more about the region and their traditions. So Chablis, we're in Burgundy, but we're in the northernmost part. It's actually separated by about an hour's drive from the rest of the region. There are 4 quality designations within the region, but no matter what the designation, it's always Chardonnay. So starting with Petit Chablis, which is a great way to get to know the region without spending a high amount of wallet share, is Petit Chablis. So Petit Chablis, these vineyards are mostly located on this sort of ring on the higher slopes around the region. The next quality level from Petit Chablis is just called Chablis, one step up in the quality rung. The next would be Premier Cru, and then the Mecca of vineyards, and they are all located on the same hill, sort of rubbing shoulders, are the Grand Cru vineyards. This is a wine that could appeal to lovers of both Chardonnay and to Sauvignon Blanc. Chardonnay can often be thought of as being very buttery or oaky, but Chablis is crisp, it's high acid. Oak is not a given here. So I really think this can please both types of wine consumers in the same glass. But let's taste it and see what we think. So it's sort of pale lemon. On the nose, it's drawing me into the glass, but it's not an aromatic variety. It's not one that jumps out of the glass. It sort of holds back a little bit of itself and makes you work for it. But when you dig in and swirl it around, there's this beautiful kind of almost seashell note to it, which makes sense. This region was literally underwater, under the ocean bed for many years. The soil type is called Kimmeridgian. It has lots of fossils and oyster shells, and you can get a sort of almost smoky minerality from it. There's some beautiful apple, citrus. I'm not getting any oak at all on the nose, but let's see what we think on the palate. Super racy acidity, very mouthwatering, light in body. It has, though, a bit of a textural component to it that I believe comes from the lees contact, for which the Chardonnays from this region are known. As I mentioned, oak is not a given here in this region at any quality level, or even if it is used, it's often used in small percentages and can be almost imperceptible. But one thing that is in common among many producers, if not all, is the use of lees contact. So lees we talked about in the video about champagne, but lees are the dead yeast cells. Now don't be afraid of that. But what happens is during fermentation, yeast consume sugars in grapes. The byproducts, of course, are alcohol and CO2. When wine is left in contact with the lees, it can add a beautiful textural richness to it. And in some cases, you almost get an almost yogurty note in the wine. And in this case, it's softening this racy acidity from what is a very cool climate. Now, this producer has a range of holdings in the region, all the way from Petit Chablis to Grand Cru. They employ what's called lutte raisonnée, which means the reasoned struggle in the vineyard, meaning they're going to do everything they can as naturally as possible. This region is very cool. It's semi-continental, and the risk of frost is high. From a producer's standpoint, that can be very, very detrimental in terms of the amount of wine they can produce on any given vintage. So in order to mitigate the risk of frost, they have employed several different things to ward it off. Things like smudge pots, where they're lighting fires in the vineyard, using the aspersion method, which is actually sprinklers in the vineyards to protect the vines from the frost, all the way up to actually employing heated cables throughout the vines just to try to save this precious crop. Now, when we talk about pairings for this wine, really all I can think about right now is oysters, but you could also pair this with scallops, escargot. Certainly cheeses would be delicious, especially a goat cheese. And it's a beautiful snapshot into what is the entry level quality for this region, but made from a producer who has a range of quality levels and really has put that lens onto even the Petit Chablis. I hope you've enjoyed tasting this wine with me. We're going to continue our discovery of France. Next, we're moving south to Provence to taste the Trian Rosé.